Do we all have one of these? Simple question. All you have to do is say yes or no. Do we all have one of these? Okay. All right. Cool. Good. I just want to say that your staff, I just want to say yes. And I also want to say that your staff here at River City Church has worked really, really, really hard to put together opportunities for us to recommit to, and also worked really hard on everything you see in this packet. We have all examined our ministries. We have all examined our roles. We have all examined what's going on in the life of the church and what we think we're being called to in the next season. And the reason there are so many trainings, what I'm saying right now is not filler, okay? This is all important. I don't have long, and then we're going to let you go, okay? The reason we have so many trainings that we announced this morning is because you're going to have an opportunity. You see the four corners of the room? Okay? Four corners of the room. They are all represented by the four things that you read on the front of your booklet. And you're going to have an opportunity. We're going to create space at the end of the service for you to move to those corners and explore some things. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. But each and every person on staff has put a lot of time and energy, especially this last month, into this. And I just wanted to thank them. Can we thank them for their work? All right. God, we thank you that you're good and that you're merciful and that you're kind. And my whole entire life you've been faithful. Every moment. And I thank you for that. So we pray that as we move into the next part of this service, Lord, that we will be aligned and unified and sense what you're doing. In your name we pray. Amen. Jesus said this in the Sermon on the Mount. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Now, there's a lot of context there where Jesus is going back to the Old Testament and referencing the ways that people in ancient civilizations and the Israelites made covenants and oaths and the things that they swore by. And some of that was older and then some of that was newer. There were new ways that they were swearing and making these over-the-top covenants. Do you remember the first time or when you started to explore? I've been having these conversations with my children lately. It's like we have certain words that we use in our home, and then we have certain words that we reserve for, hammer falls on your toe, something like that, okay? No, we have certain words that we use in our home. We have certain words that we don't. So there's a moment in a child's life where they begin to differentiate. Do you remember when you started saying, I swear? Like, I swear this is true. I swear. No, I swear. Okay? You remember when that started to happen? So in my home growing up, we weren't allowed to use that word. We weren't allowed to say, I swear. Was anybody not allowed to use that word? Okay? Which is fine. It's good. Right? So my brother and I, who were always trying to trick each other and get each other to do things right, we had to develop a new system to make sure that we were not lying to each other. So we decided that instead of saying, I swear, we would say, I promise. But then after a while, I promise didn't really hold up. Like, I promise could even be shaky if we were really trying to get the other one to believe something or do something. So then we came up with this phrase, I promise to God. Ooh, if one of us said promise to God, it was like, all right. If you're lying now, it's on you. It's on you and your generations after you, right? Like, blood is on your hands because you just promised to God, all right? So, what is that? Okay? So remember a few weeks ago we talked about spiritual warfare, and I alluded to the fact that when Adam and Eve were deceived, right, Satan took a truth but used it as a lie, which is his specialty. okay? They were deceived and gave over the authority that God had trusted to them to govern this world. And then Satan began to spin his web here. Spin his web of lies. And when Jesus was confronting very fake religious elite Christians that were called Pharisees, he said, everything that comes out of your mouth is a lie because you belong to your father. You belong to Satan, the father of lies. So under the curse, this world operates in darkness, in deception, in manipulation, and in lies. We have entire organizations built, like the CIA, for counterintelligence and to find out if what other countries, people lie, families lie, countries lie to each other. Okay, there is a assumption in global political interactions that what we're being told is not necessarily the truth, and that what we're telling is not necessarily the truth, because they have the same types of agencies in other countries. So we're born into a fallenness that is part of the prince of this world, the father of lies. Deceit and falsehood are what we're born into. Now, this is the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus is giving this message, okay? N.T. Wright wrote this. In the Sermon on the Mount, it felt like Jesus was turning the world upside down. Some of the things that he said, if you really take them to heart, it felt like he was turning the world upside down. But he was actually turning the world right side up. It had become fallen. It had become upside down. Okay? Now we have to struggle. One of the things that's so beautiful about this table every week is we come in and we examine our hearts. Have I lived falsely? Is there darkness that God's light needs to shine to? But as the church, as me, as you, we have to press into living in the light, living in the truth. Okay? But if you ever disconnect from the body of Christ, a body of Christ that's not perfect but is seeking to live in the light, and you go immerse yourself in the world for 6 months, 10 months, 12 months, you're going to find yourself caught up in confusion, chaos, manipulation, backbiting, backstabbing. That's the way the enemy's world works, and it's not fully redeemed yet. It's being redeemed, but if you throw yourself into that world, I promise that will be your experience. And many of you know that firsthand because you were brought out of it like all of us. Okay? But we are imaging what the kingdom looks like, be it ever so imperfect. Okay? John wrote, if we live in the light, like he is in the light, then we can have fellowship with God, okay? But we can also have fellowship with one another, okay? We can have fellowship with God, but we can also have fellowship with one another. If you're in a relationship with someone and they're not willing to live in the light, they're not willing to walk in truth, you can't really have a relationship with them. You can try, but there's going to be a huge gap of trust and deception. Okay? So in order to live in the light, we have to live in the truth. So Jared, where's this headed? Okay? So we still have both natures. I believe that we're partly becoming like Christ and becoming a true yes person. This means God's removing deceit, manipulation, and lies out of our heart. But we're also still dealing with our flesh. So today I want to talk about what it means to say yes and to have your yes carry some substance. I've also been talking about this with my children as I've been thinking about this. Son, what does it look like for you to say yes? Lucy, what does it look like for you to say yes? And then I've been looking back at my heart and I've been saying, Jared, what does it look like for you to say yes? When you tell your son, when you tell your friend, when you tell your boss, when you tell your family, your mom, your dad, that you will do something, what does that mean? Does that carry any weight? Or does that need to be backed up with agreements and swears and promises? What surrounds that yes? What surrounds that no? Okay? I've been training for a marathon, okay? And there's all these memes out there that goes, if anybody's training for a marathon, you don't have to wonder because they can't wait to tell you, okay? So I understand it's pretentious to say that, all right? But I want to share with you from my weakness on that because I have realized what an unbelievable deal maker I am in that I know I've committed to something, but every day is a struggle to live into the yes and the commitment that I've made. Some days much harder than others. It's really hard to give yourself to something that matters. So for me, I've decided this matters. This is something I want to do. This is something I've committed to. So the other day, I had a lunch appointment scheduled. This is a silly example, but I hope it's helpful for you. I had a lunch appointment scheduled, and I was really excited because it was at Cracker Barrel, okay? I love Southern style food, like just all the comfort, right? So I knew I was going to Cracker Barrel. There was a certain level of excitement, okay? Here's the problem. That morning, I just did not do what I was supposed to do as part of my training. I didn't run, okay? So then I'm like, I don't have time at this point. I've got this appointment. I didn't knock this out. I didn't do it in the morning. So because of that, okay, I can go to Cracker Barrel and get a salad if they have those. Maybe I'll get a salad with gravy, you know. But what I was really thinking is, Jared, you're going to go in there, man, and they're going to say cornbread or biscuits, and you're going to say both. Hit me, right? So I texted the person, and I said, gosh, is it okay if we have lunch across the street? Is that all right with you? Because there's something that I think I can eat there that's going to be a little bit better for me. I'm training for a marathon, all right? So, parenthesis, all right? So when sent that text, went over there. Now, if you ask yourself, okay, the Donna is February 5th, all right? Did eating Cracker Barrel in mid-September, all right? Did eating Cracker Barrel in mid-September in any way, shape, or form affect how I do on race day? The answer to that is no. That food will be digested. The inflammation will have left my body. Like I'll be okay. All right. But it's not about that. Because I committed to run a marathon in February, I counted the cost to get from where I was in June, which was more Cracker Barrel than normal, to where I needed to be in February. The cost that I counted was, Jared, you're going to have to commit to a training plan or you're not going to be able to run 26 miles. You've never run anywhere near that in your whole life. So I didn't make the decision based on what I was doing on February 5th because those two 4 months later, I made the decision based on the fact that I'd counted the cost. And what I've learned in this process of training for a marathon, okay, is that when you truly say yes, a true yes is also a no. Yes means yes, and yes also means no. Okay? Now, Paul used imagery of racing and running, and bodily training is of some value, but training for godliness is of eternal value. Okay? And we're going to start a series next week called Patterns, and we're going to look at what it means to actually give our lives to the things that matter. But here's my question for you. What do you want? Your desires. Most people that I sit down with and ask, what matters to you? What's important to you? Usually, if you sit down with Christians and they're not, in a really angry or frustrated space, it's typically some of the same things. And I would say, do you think this is important? And they would say yes. Do you think this is important? And they would say yes. Okay. What about that? Do you think that's important? Yes. what matters to you. All right? Now, I believe, if you look at the front of this packet, okay, and I think we'll have these on the screen too, actually. I just remembered that. But when I think about patterning our lives after Jesus Christ, Paul says, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Okay? Do not be conformed to the patterns of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. What that verse tells me is that you're going to be formed into something. You are going to be formed. And it sounds like he's saying, what we do about that, the difference is our patterns. It's what we say yes to. Okay? Now, the longer we are conformed, the longer Satan has the opportunity to progress us toward becoming deformed. There is formation into the image of the Son, and then there is deformation into the image of the world. There's formation and deformation. So patterns are important. The second thing is we commit to community. Okay? I'm sick of that. Every church I go to, commit to community. All right? Why are you sick of it? Because it costs you something emotionally. You have to open up. Maybe some people have let you down. Maybe you've let some people down. Regardless, I think most of us, if we sat down and we said, is it better to do life as someone who follows Jesus alone, or is it better to do life as someone who follows Jesus with others? I think we would all say with others, okay? The next is this: serve the River City Church family. Some of you are all-stars. You're doing it, okay? And you go, oh, I don't like this. Churches like to get people to do things, okay? Churches like to get people to serve. I don't like it, right? Well, I'm going to address that in just a second, but one thing that we really like to lean into here, and my staff knows this, and this is the shepherding heart that I believe needs to infiltrate our entire culture here as a church, and that is, I can stand before each and every one of you and say, I care more about who you are and who you're becoming than what you do, okay? I tell my staff all the time, I will never sacrifice you for your ministry. If you're not okay, let's deal with that. I love you. Right? So maybe you were a part of a church where you felt burned out, used, dried up, spit out. Okay? That can happen in any church. That can happen here. There may be people that have been here that have felt like that happened to them. But that's not what we want here. I actually believe that when you serve, there's something that happens. People believe, all right, I'm going to receive and receive and receive, and when I get full and everything's okay, then I'll start giving out. But that's the opposite of the way that Jesus does it. His disciples, like Mac was saying earlier, they had so many questions and didn't have a clue what was going on, and he was sending them out because he knew that there were certain things about becoming like him that they were not going to experience until they gave it away. Okay? And then engage in local and global kingdom mission. And this is a variance of different ways. There are a lot of different ways that we do outreach here in the city. We kind of have this operating system for what it looks like to love and listen to our city called Alpha that's consistently running in the background. We do Alpha either in the fall or the spring or both. And that's an opportunity for you to invite your friends out, create a space for them to be heard, for them to encounter the Spirit, for them to ask questions. And that's just kind of like this consistent front door that we're always going to offer. But there are so many different ways that you can engage, both locally, globally. The last year, we've had several trips to Brazil. We've had a trip to Costa Rica. And then we have all sorts of different outreach and partnerships in Jacksonville that we're engaged in. So we want to give you guys an opportunity to do that and say yes. Now, here's what, if you turn in your hymnal, all right, flip over to page 7, okay? I want to read this verse, okay? Matthew 21, 28 through 31. What do you think? Just Jesus doing a little teaching here. There was a man who had 2 sons. He went to the first and said, "Son, go and work today in the vineyard." "I will not," he answered. But later he changed his mind and went. Okay? I just think that's funny. I will not go to the vineyard, okay? Then the father went to the other son and said the same thing. He answered, I will, sir, but he did not go. Which of the two did what his father wanted? The first, they answered. Jesus said to them, I tell you the truth, the tax collectors and the prostitutes are entering the kingdom of God ahead of you. Now, there's a lot going on about the kingdom there, and that people that seemed like they were on the margins had no chance of being with Jesus were the ones that were saying yes. That had originally lived for themselves, realized their brokenness and fallenness, and were coming to him. And then there were those that had been very elite and knew all the stuff and were saying all the things that we're going to do, but they weren't doing them. Okay? I want us to become a yes people. This starts with me. Okay? All the way down to if I tell Hudson I'm going to play Xbox with him, I want to follow through on that. Because I want him to know that what Dad says he's going to stand by. Okay? But it starts with our staff. It starts with our leadership. If we do something here, we've been having a lot of conversations about doing it well, planning it well, communicating it well, not canceling it, changing it, morphing it, or shifting it. But letting you know that anything that we do as a church, you can count on it because our yes is a yes. Okay? So we want to continue to build that culture. Every church kind of has these seasons where they drift and they go, oh, well, it's just so like us to announce something and not do it and announce something. And we're just going to take that whole idea here that's kind of grown and just put it down gently and let it die. Okay? We're not going to be that way anymore. We're going to have substance behind what we say that we're doing, be it ever so imperfectly. Okay? Now, for you, when you say, Jared, I do think it's important that I give my life to some things. I do think there's some corporate and community patterns as a church that matter. I do think there's some things that I want to go all in on. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Here's what I'm asking, okay? This is the tension that I want to call you into this morning. Don't say yes and live no. Don't say yes and live no, okay? When you go to the community section, you're going to find that we have so many city groups. Only so many. We do not have enough for our entire church right now. We're going to launch 2 streams of community commitment. One is going to be city groups and one is going to be table groups. Some of you remember table groups. They're 5 to 8 people. City groups are typically a 2-year commitment, and then they're encouraged to raise up new leaders and multiply. Table groups are semesterly commitments, so you'll commit for the fall, you'll commit for the spring, and they're a lower commitment level, but they are something you can say yes to. Right? But my encouragement to you is that if you say yes to a city group, listen, there may be someone who doesn't have first option to join the city group because you said yes before they did. They're fully intending to participate, but we tell them there's no room because you said yes and lived a no. Jared, that's the most guilt-ridden thing you've ever said. I'm not trying to heap any guilt on you, okay? If you know me, you know that's not me. But there's some things I want for you that I can't withhold from you. Okay? I don't want you to drift. I don't want you to passively be a part of a church. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't want you to passively fulfill the mission of God. That doesn't make sense to me. I want you to actively fulfill the mission of God. If you say, Jared, I want to serve. I want to be a part of a team. Don't say yes and live no. Not only is there a ministry leader over that team that you're saying, yes, you can count on me, but there's also other people on that team that are saying, we're in this together. Okay, we're in this together, right? So we're all going to take a move towards the middle today. But I want you to have a full heart about whatever you say you're going to do. I want you to have some substance behind it, okay? So 2 Corinthians, Paul wrote this, and we're going to move around in just a second. But I was confident of this. I planned to visit you first so that you might benefit twice, okay? I planned to visit you on my way to Macedonia and to come back to you from Macedonia and then to have you send me on my way to Judea. When I planned this, did I do it lightly? Or did I make my plans in a worldly matter so in the same breath I say yes, yes, and no, no? This is Paul, writing these churches saying, I'm going to get there. I'm going to come see you. I know you're going through some things. I'm going to come pray for you and bless you and water the seed that's been sown, okay? But as surely as God is faithful, our message to you is not yes and no. For the Son of God, Jesus Christ, who was preached among you by me and Silas and Timothy, was not yes and no, but in him it has always been yes. For no matter how many promises God has made, they are yes in Christ. And so through him, the amen is spoken by us to the glory of God. Before we came out here this morning, I had a chance to pray with the band, and someone prayed, Lord Jesus, thank you for saying yes to me. Thank you for seeing me and saying, yes, Jared, yes. Yes, Kyle. Yes, Tony. Yes, Rose. Yes. And anything that comes out of Jesus Christ's mouth, the fullness of the Lord guaranteed by his Spirit, is an eternal yes. All my life, his yes has been faithful. Okay? I was just weeping as we sang that because I can think back on these moments. I asked Mac, I said, why do we, he's running after us, why do we run from him? Why does he have to do that? Okay? We turn around and there's his yes. If you're his, it's yes, yes, yes. Okay? Always and amen. Amen means so be it. Amen. Okay? So I want us to be like him. There's 3 C's here that we want to talk about as it pertains to city groups and serving. And this is kind of what I would say a yes looks like on page 7. Number 1 is character. You go, oh no, I have to have perfect character to do something. Just read it. Just read it. We care more about who you're becoming than what you can do for the church. You're not serving because of RCC. You're serving because you follow Jesus. I want these things for you no matter where you go to church. If you move to Utah next week and join a church with Ellie, I want you to do these things because I believe they're good for you. Okay? So, but as you join a group, as you join a team, you say, Jared, well, if I join the team and I cancel 6 weeks in a row, I'm giving the ministry team leader permission to say, I know you care more about me than what I can do, so if you call and check in on me, that's okay. I want you to. Ask me if I'm okay. Ask me if I've fallen into a hard spot. Ask me if my family's okay, if my relationships are okay. All right? Second is commitment. We want our yes to mean yes, which means no to anything that would conflict with our commitment. We also commit to being prepared so that we're ready to serve when we arrive. Guys, like if you're on the children's team, I think there's over 120 plus family ministry people registered for tonight's training. Awesome. Okay? So what does it look like? Amity and Tim are going to tell you, but you show up with the mindset of, I'm here. I'm here to do ministry. Something could happen in a child that could change things forever, okay? And then communication. We don't serve in isolation, so clear communication is essential to healthy teams. Please let us know your availability, block out dates, and accept or decline requests in Planning Center as soon as possible so that team leaders can plan accordingly. Jocelyn, will you bring me my phone? Please. Thank you, Mac.
Happy to serve.
Thank you. Yes, okay. Everybody take out your phone really quick. We are moving. This is on the inside the first booklet. We are moving the life of our church into an app called Church Center, okay? Which means text, emails, phone calls, telegrams, putting a note in a bird's mouth and it might land at your house, like all that stuff's gone, all right? We are moving slowly. We're going to give a little bit of a time for adjustment, but you scan this app with your phone. If you do not have a cell phone, let us know. If you need another option because of some physical condition or something like that, certainly let us know. But for the most part, we piloted this with many of our city groups last fall, and it worked out well, okay? You may not like it as much as you like some other app on your phone, but literally the life of the church can happen through Church Center. If you're in Planning Center, you're already registered. You just have to scan it. There'll be a few steps and you can set it up. There's group chats. Every single message, the study guide goes up. You'll be able to watch the sermons on there. You'll be able to interact on there. You'll be able to see every single event. You'll be able to pull up this thing that's like your agenda. It says, all right, Jared, this is my RCC dashboard, and it shows me everything that I'm signed up for, everything that I'm doing. So as you go to these tables, you're going to have an opportunity to scan your phone. You notice we don't have giant stacks of paper to give you over there, just a few, because we want you to move everything on here so that communication is consolidated and that we know that when we communicate something, it's going to a place that you know where to find it, and you know that when we communicate something, you know where to find it so that you can stay engaged with everything going on, okay? So everybody stand with me. Everybody stand with me? Yes. Will you stand? Yes. Okay. All right. So, this is an important season in the life of the church, not just our church, okay? We're in between two elections. The midterms have already started. They've already gotten weird, okay? I fully expect the culture to pull this again, start trying to come apart at the seams. You have an opportunity to live counter to the culture. I think this window is important. Pew Research, which is church research data collectors, did a big study and found that about 2 out of every 3 people never came back after the pandemic to church. Or 2 out of 3 did come back, sorry. So 1/3 did not. 1/3 did not, okay? So there's going to be another opportunity for us to become disconnected again. I think you're going to have to decide what you want to give your life to, the things that you want to say yes to. As we move from here to Atlantic and beyond, God, what do we care about as a church? What's important? How do we want to be formed? What does that look like? Well, Jared, I don't know if I'm wrestling with this. I'm wrestling with what I believe. I'm wrestling with what I think. I'm wrestling with all that. The lie is that you have to get it all sorted up here before you can give yourself to something. But once again, the disciples were clueless. When you reign, can we sit at your right and left hand? I'm going to die. Okay? I'm here to die. Can we be in charge? No. But at the same time, fully equipping them, fully sending them out, letting them practice and put their hands to something. So don't try to have it all sorted up here, you guys that are smarter than me. Okay? Don't try to have it all sorted out. Put your hand to it and let's see how you get formed in the opposite direction. Okay? Countercultural. All right. I want to send you to your stations with a blessing, my favorite one, and then here's what you're going to do. Go to the stations. Someone let the children know 11:55, and then we'll dismiss you guys to go get your kids. But receive this blessing and then go to your stations, okay? And now to him who is able to keep you from stumbling and present you blameless before the presence of his glory with great joy, to the only God our Savior, through Jesus Christ our Lord, be glory, majesty, dominion, and authority before all time, and now and forever. Amen. All right, guys, let's say yes. I'm excited about the next season. Stations in the, all right. I don't know which ones are which. Which is this one?
This is community.
Community is in this corner. Outreach, Alpha, serving the city, local global mission over here. Patterns to become more like Jesus over here. And serving the church family over here.